is already, we'll stop.
We have to redo the question.
Yeah. Okay. So one of you has to read.
To redo.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, we have to redo. Okay.
Rangada, we have to redo. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Rangada. You have to read, not us.
Okay. I read each sentence. Before we do that, okay, let me just remind you of what you said in the previous paragraph. Okay. He is saying in the previous paragraph, the inconscious, which is at the bottom, and the superconscious, which is at the top, they are mirror images of each other. Okay, they are very similar. Just as in a mirror image, also everything is so similar, and yet there's a right becomes left and left becomes right. Okay, so that's exactly what he's saying here. The inconscious is a mirror image of the superconscious, an inverse copy of the supreme luminosity. Supreme luminosity above, supreme darkness below. They are both infinite, eternal, self-involved, self-concentrated seed states. The superconscious also produces and the inconscient also produces on the opposite side. The superconscious producing is the involution and the inconscient producing is the evolution. The superconscious is a, one second. Yeah. The superconscious is a self-condensed light, thick, dhana. Okay. The inconscient is a dark, tenebrous self-involvement. Self-involvement. Everything is there in the darkness. It is all hidden. The Rig Veda says it is darkness enveloped in darkness. But this inconscient is an involved knowledge. It is there, but it's not apparent. Just like the seed is the involved tree, exactly in the same. All the evolutionary works emerging out of it are executed with an incredible, extraordinary precision, which is mind-blowing. Okay, that's the best example is the instincts in animals and the way the plants are growing. They are not conscious, but they do it absolutely perfectly. The plants go upwards to get light, and they go downwards with their roots to get water. It's not a conscious movement, but it seems to be conscious. It is something so fantastic they do. Okay, it's a blind, faultlessly working mechanism because it has knowledge by identity hidden deep in its roots. It may look like non-existence, the inconscient, but it is really existence in reverse. It has hidden in it the real idea of the supermind, infallibly executing each movement without any correction, as if fully conscious. In the first emergence from the inconscious, it is energy that manifests and not consciousness. Energy means Shakti. Okay. Consciousness is not apparent in matter, but energy comes out first. Shakti, not Chit. This is what we said in the previous one. Now we start reading each sentence, but we read today. We can, in this knowledge, understand more clearly the stages of the emergence of consciousness from involution to its evolved appearance, of which we have already attempted some general conception. So, this knowledge that everything is involved in the inconscient. Okay. The material existence. So first of all, he's saying energy has come out, and energy is matter. So matter has come out first from the inconscient. We think that matter is the last, matter is inconscious. In a way it is, but actually even matter has evolved and come out of inconscient. Inconscient is the last, not matter. The material existence has only a physical, not a mental individuality. The material existence has an individuality. Individuality means limitedness. but conscious limitedness. So you can think of it as the atom. Okay. The matter is made up of infinite atoms. That's the individual aspect of matter. But there is a subliminal presence in it. The presence is there. Okay? That's what it is. The material, yeah. There is subliminal presence there. The one conscious in unconscious things. This is there. I made a note. This is there from the Katha Upanishad. The one conscious in unconscious things. But in the Katha Upanishad, it is not conscious and unconscious things. It is the consciousness of the conscious, the limited consciousness of the infinite consciousness. Yes, there is making it a little different. The one conscious in unconscious things. In other words, the divine presence is there even in matter. That's what he's saying. Matter is unconscious, but the divine is conscious. Okay. That determines the operation of its indwelling energies. That is why there is so much of absolutely rationality and system and order which comes out, even in the lower animals and even in the plants. If, as has been affirmed, a material object receives and retains the impressions of the contact of things around it, and energies emanate from it, so that an occult knowledge can become aware of its past, can make us conscious of these emanating influences, the intrinsic unorganized awareness pervading the form, but not yet enlightening it, must be the cause of this receptivity and these capacities. Now, this huge sentence, let's understand what he's saying. We'll go through phrase by phrase. If, as has been affirmed, he has already told us about this. What has he told us? He has told us that any material object retains everything that has happened to it in the earlier. Its history of what has happened to it is recorded in the material itself. The good example is, take a pen. I am writing with it. Okay, something of me is going into that pen, and if someone who is very who can discuss this knowledge, who can by touching my pen come to know about something from me, if he is psychic, if he is what is called? It's called ESP, extrasensory perception. If he has that capacity, he will know something about me also by just touching my pen or my shirt or whatever. That's what's in this thing. If, as has been affirmed, a material object receives and retains the impressions of the contact of things around it, and energies emanate from it. So that what is happening is, it is receiving things from outside, retaining them, but also sending out energies and emanate from it, so that an occult knowledge can become aware of its past, can make us conscious of these emanating influences, the intrinsic unorganized awareness pervading the form, but not yet enlightening it enlightening it must be the cause of this receptivity and these capacities. So everything in the physical world, all these things, they absorb the influences around them, and they are also importing and exporting, if you want. Okay, they are exporting their energies. So that's the reason why, by touching it, okay, knowledge by identity is possible. If I touch that, then my consciousness contacts consciousness in that object, and I come to know many things about it, depending on the capacity of the one who is touching the object. That's what he's saying. Right? And that is the reason why an occult knowledge, hidden knowledge, the knowledge of whatever is hidden in that pen or stone or shirt or whatever, can become aware of the past. So now, interesting idea strikes me. Nowadays we do carbon dating. We know the age of things. They do carbon dating. So if you have got this higher consciousness, you don't need to do carbon dating. You just touch it and you know all its past history. Okay. So that's why it's interesting thought. Okay. Where what we see from outside is that material objects like plants and minerals, okay, have their powers, properties, inherent influences. But as there is no faculty or means of communication, it's only by being brought into contact with person or object or by conscious utilization by living beings that their influences can become active. So what his what Sanjay is saying is very interesting. We'll have a look. Such a utilization is the practical side of more than one human science. Okay? So this human science that he's talking about, there are many people who use these things. Okay, so we'll go into a little detail in this, but he's saying that everything in the physical world, objects, insects, everything, they are absorbing things from the universe and also sending out their influences, the impressions that come. Okay, so these impressions are the what they call also the vasanas. They sometimes remain inside the object or the person. So now we read the sentence again. What we see from outside is that material objects like plants and minerals have their powers. So very obvious, plants take ginger. Okay, it's got its own characteristic. It's got a power. Okay, take any plant. Take tulsi. Okay, it refers to the devotion. Okay, so everything in the physical world, whatever you have, okay, there are all sorts of things which they have their powers. In fact, all minerals also have so many powers. Properties. Each thing has got properties. And inherent influences. Inherent here means that which is there hidden inside. Everything has got this. We don't see it that way. What we see from outside is material objects like plants and minerals have their powers, properties, and inherent influences. But as there is no faculty or means of communication, it is only by being brought into contact with person or object. So whatever powers are hidden in something, hidden in my pen, for instance, the pen will not be able to talk about it because it doesn't have the means of communication. But if I can touch that, then I can access the information that is there in the pen. That's what he's saying. Okay? As there is no faculty or means of communication in that pen or whatever object you are touching, it's only by being brought into contact with person or object. Now look at that. He's saying even object. Okay. Now that's interesting because when he's saying object, you think of several things. First of all, there are people who do crystal gazing. Huh? So crystal gazing would fall in this category of object. Then there are other people also who do all sorts of things with pendulum. Okay, so there is some sort of truth in all these things, but it has to be also someone who is capable of understanding what those influences are in the thing. Okay, so person or object. That's surprising, no? So that's why I gave you two examples of what object can do. Crystal gazing, and there are many others who do all sorts of other things. Okay, so, or by conscious utilization, by living beings, that their influences can become active. There you are. So now that is how Mother used to charge rose petals and divine's love flower petals with her power. And she herself discovered this in Algeria, if you remember. She saw one day that she was feeling Madame Theon had given her some flower petals to keep. And she used to carry it every day with herself. But she wasn't conscious about its effect. One day, she felt absolutely drained out of energy. And then to her surprise, she saw afterwards She couldn't understand why it is like that. But when she saw afterwards that she had not carried those petals, then she understood that the power these petals have. So that's what we are saying. Each object has got its power and properties, and someone who is very conscious, okay, he's saying conscious utilization by living beings, that their influences can become active. This is also the reason why many people tell you, okay, it's not nonsense. They'll tell you, if you are wearing a ring, use a red color, or use a green color, or use a, there are all sorts of things that they can use. Or even if you are wearing ornamental things, they'll tell you the color to use. Okay, so this is not absolute nonsense. There is a truth to it. That's exactly what we are reading now. The influences can become active. So, such a utilization is the practical side of more than one human science. Many people do these things. Crystal gazing definitely falls in that. Also the pendulum also. There used to be a man here who used to do pendulum, even now he does. But still, these powers and influences are attributes of being. Attributes of being, existence, not of mere indeterminate substance. So what he's saying here is, it's because of the divine presence in things that the properties are there. Influences and attributes, powers and properties are there because the consciousness of the divine is there in it, not of mere indeterminate substance. It is not the substance that has the power, but the divine presence in the substance that has the power. They are forces of the spirit emerging by energy from its self-absorbed inconscience. However much the inconscience is involved with the divine presence, still the divine presence is powerful enough to send out these subtle waves of energy and properties and all. This first crude mechanical action of an inherent absorbed conscious energy opens in primary forms of life into submental life vibrations. So first you have matter, and then you have inherent absorbed conscious energy is in matter, opens into primary forms of life. Primary forms of life, unicellular creatures, small things, okay, and things like that, into submental life vibrations. Submental life vibrations. Okay, what he's saying is that these subtle forces that are coming out of matter, now when they come to the life element, these vibrations are, which are there in the substance, start sending out, and they are more conscious. You can feel these vibrations coming out, okay? Not maybe at the unicellular creature or at the other level, but as soon as it comes to the animal levels, you can feel their vibrations. It's quite common, okay? So it's a slow growth of these vibrations. What should we say? Very interesting. At the material level, vibrations are there, but you don't feel them. At the life level, you can start feeling those vibrations, but they are still submental. And now when the mind comes up, now the vibrations in matter, which don't have the capacity of expression, now in life they have the capacity of expression, and in the mind the capacity of expression is there. That's why you can speak out of those vibrations. And it's very interesting, even the plants which don't have capacity of expression are giving out these life vibrations. And if you are very subtle, you'll be able to feel them. Okay? That's the reason in life, very few will be able to feel the vibrations coming out of matter. But more will be capable of feeling out of the life elements. Plants, for instance, are constantly giving out vibrations. Vibrations of positive and negative. So those who are very sensitive to plants, they know they can talk to plants. I refer you back to mother's experience of the vegetables telling, don't take us, we are not ready. So this is the vibration that's coming out and mother can feel that. Okay? And it's not that uncommon. Okay? I told you when I was in the press, I printed a book for an American man who could communicate with plants. Okay, and he printed a whole book. I printed a book for him, 3,000 copies of talks with trees. So this is what Sundar is saying here. It gradually increases these vibrations which are there in matter. When they come into life, they become more obvious. And when it comes into animals, it becomes even more obvious. The animal is capable now of expressing whatever is there within itself. And when it comes to man, even more expression. Okay, so this is the gradual evolution of the vibrations from the material level to the higher level. He is actually giving you a justification for the phenomenon of direct knowledge. Direct knowledge, that is identity. What are the words he uses? Separative indirect knowledge first, then separative direct knowledge next, then there is identification. So identification is possible precisely because your consciousness will be able to feel the consciousness in the other. So this is slowly building up towards that. But still, these powers and influences are attributes of being, okay, of the divine presence, not a mere indeterminate substance. They are forces of the spirit emerging in energy. Emerging in energy. I've lost it. 1 second. Yeah, emerging in energy by energy from its self-absorbed consciousness. This first crude mechanical action of an inherent absorbed conscious energy opens in the primary forms of life into submental life vibrations. Submental below the mind. That means the animals that imply an inward sensation. There is a seeking for growth, light, air, life room, a blind feeling out. He's talking about plants, huh? Seeking for growth, light, air, life room, a blind feeling out, which is still internal and confined within the immobile being, unable to formulate its instincts, to communicate, to externalize itself. An immobility not organized to establish living relations, it endures and absorbs contacts at that level, the submental level. An immobility is relative. Okay. In the matter, it is absolute. But in the plants, it is relative, immobility. Not organized to establish living relations. Okay. That living relation, but it can, one plant can have a relation with another plant, but it's not living. It is subtle. It endures and absorbs contacts, involuntarily inflicts, but cannot voluntarily impose them. So there you are. A plant can feel your love, it can feel your good vibrations, but it cannot voluntarily impose them. It also responds, okay, but it cannot impose it on you. You have to feel that. The inconscience is still dominant, still works out. Where? At the plant level. The inconscience is still dominant, still works out everything by the secret inward knowledge by identity. It has not yet developed the surface contactual means of conscious knowledge. So what is this? Develop the surface contactual means of conscious knowledge is senses. Okay? But he is telling you in such a way that you understand the context. Okay? The surface contactual means are the senses of a conscious knowledge. Okay? But the senses are not there in matter and the senses are not there in plants. But it starts coming in the lower forms of animals. It starts coming. So there's gradual upward movement. So The inconscious is still dominant, still works out everything by the secret involved knowledge of the identity. It has not yet developed the surface contextual means of conscious knowledge. This further development begins with overtly conscious life. Conscious life, overtly conscious life is a way of saying animals. Okay. The covertly conscious life is that of plants. Overtly conscious animals. You can feel their conscious life. Plants, you can't feel. That's why it is hidden. Covert, not overt. What we see in it is the imprisoned consciousness struggling out to the surface. It is under the compulsion of this struggle that the separated living being strives, however blindly at first and within narrow limits, to enter into conscious relations with the rest of the world being outside it. So, as the senses develop, because it is trying to have a relation with it, it tries, but it has no means. In matter, there is no means. In plants, there is no means, and yet there is an effort for that. Okay? And in animals, it becomes even more obvious. Okay? Animals try to have relations with others. It's very, very obvious. If you respond to animals, they also respond to you like anything. Okay? How blindly it will It is by the growing amount of contacts that it receives, that it can receive and respond to, and by the growing amount of contacts that it can put out from itself or impose in order to satisfy its needs and impulsions, that the being of living matter, now look at that, the being of living matter, okay, develops its consciousness, grows from inconscience or subconscious into a limited separated mind. Being of living matter. Matter is non-living, living matter is life, and being of living life is the, you can say even man, okay, because being of living life develops its consciousness, grows from inconscience and subconscious into a limited separated knowledge. So the divine presence is there in everything, and everything has got properties. Those properties are slowly trying to come into contact with the universe, and it doesn't succeed much in matter. It doesn't succeed much in plants, but it does begin to succeed in the animal world. And in man, he can, to a large extent, express himself and have relations in the physical world. The relations are not possible in matter. The relations are not possible in plant. They are there, but subtle. At the animal level, the relations become quite obvious. And in human beings, it becomes even more obvious. Finally, the relations can become such in the spiritual man that you can have a cosmic consciousness. You are now in relation with everybody around you. So, beautiful para, how Swamdeva has described the evolution of the involved divine in matter, how slowly it is coming out from matter to, first of all, inconscience, then matter. Even matter has capacity of radiating certain influences. Okay? The mother used to give out rings, and it used to have a red stone in the middle, okay, like my ring. It had a red stone in the middle. Then you know that, na? These they do give out vibrations. And exactly, you can also put influences into the flower petals. Mother used to say that these flower petals, their influence lasts for about 6 months, what she used to put. These rose petals and divine love petals used to be taken to mother, and she used to concentrate on that. And then blessings package used to be made. Okay. Now what they do, mother is not there physically, but they are put in mother's room. And then they absorb these. So what Swamdeva said is very clearly, these rose petals and divine petals have the power to absorb the atmosphere of mother's room. That's exactly what you said in the para. So then they are made into blessings packets. Okay. So, and after 6 months, better to have new ones. So that completes the para. Very, very interesting now what you said. I think it's clear.
Yes, Rangada.
Yeah.
What?
Very interesting what you said. So we can read the next paragraph. We see, what is the time? 32. We have got 3-4 minutes. We got a little more than 3-4 minutes. We can read the next one. We see then. So,
Shall I read?
yes, okay, go ahead.
Yes. We see then all the powers inherent in the original self-existent spiritual awareness slowly brought out and manifested in this growing separative consciousness. They are activities suppressed but native to the secret and involved knowledge by identity, and they now emerge by degrees in a form strangely diminished and tentative. First, there emerges a crude or veiled sense which develop into precise sensations aided by a vital instinct or concealed intuition. Then, a life mind, perception manifests, and at its back, an obscure consciousness sight and feeling of things. Emotions vibrates out and seeks an interchange with others. Last arises to the surface conception, thought, reason comprehending and apprehending the object, combining its data of knowledge. But all are incomplete, still maimed by the separative ignorance and the first obscuring inconscience. All are dependent on the outward means, not empowered to act in their own right. Consciousness cannot act directly on consciousness. There is a constructive envelopment and penetration of things by the mind consciousness, but not a real possession. There is no knowledge by identity. Only when the subliminal is able to force upon the frontal mind and sense some of its secret activities, pure and untranslated into the ordinary forms of mental intelligence, thus a rudimentary action of the deeper method lifts itself to the surface. But such emergencies are still an exception. They strike across the normality of our acquired and learned knowledge with a savor of the abnormal and the supernormal. It is only by an opening to our inner being or an entry into it that a direct intimate awareness can be added to our outer indirect awareness. It is only by our awakening to our inmost soul or superconscious self that there can be a beginning of the spiritual knowledge with identity as its basis, its constituent power, its intrinsic substance.
Okay, so this is the last paragraph of the chapter. And the next is the boundaries of the ignorance. Where does the ignorance start and where does it end? And where does knowledge start and where does knowledge end? Okay, so we have 3-4 minutes. Tomorrow we'll go through this para very clearly. But right now, I can do one thing. I will read out the summary. Okay, so we'll see what you say. All right. We see then that all the powers of the spirit are there, involved and hidden in a condensed, massive darkness, which is the inconscient. Okay? Then the inconscient is the foundation and base of the descent of spirit into matter. These powers now emerge slowly and strangely diminished and incomplete. Okay? The first to emerge is a veiled sensitivity, plants, unicellular units. Then comes a life mind, manas, with the physical senses. Emotion comes next, and finally, reason and mind. But the limitations of the reason are obvious. The next stage of the larger knowledge comes with the entry into the subliminal and the upward spiritual planes above. The upward spiritual planes above reason. Man has to enter deep within himself or climb above. If you go deep into yourself, you have the intraconscious or the subliminal. And if you climb above yourself, you are in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Man has to enter deep within himself or climb above his outer nature to attain to the direct but separated knowledge. Direct but separated knowledge you can have in the higher mind or also in the intraconscious, the inner mind. Finally, there is the knowledge by identity. After crossing a lesser grade of the same power called a derivative secondary power of knowledge by identity. This is what he said. Very clear gradation. So the description is fantastic of the gradation. Only the words we have to identify what the words are and we'll do that. But this is the idea. So tomorrow, Thursday, we'll do the life divine and we'll finish this plan. Then after that, he starts discussing where does knowledge start? Okay. The knowledge by identity is at the highest level. Knowledge which is there hidden in the inconscious is the lowest level. So where does this knowledge start becoming? Conscious knowledge. It becomes first mechanical knowledge, then it becomes vital knowledge, then it becomes mental knowledge, then it becomes spiritual knowledge, and finally there is identity. There is no knowledge at all. Knower and known become one. Okay? That means you have become the divine yourself. Okay, so I wish all of you a very nice day. Okay, meet you tomorrow and we'll finalize this.
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay.
Thank you, Rangada.
Thank you, Rangada.